All right, let's do this. Let's talk about it. All right, and if you're here live, um,
Let's
you
do
know,
this.
uh,
Let's.
one of the advantages of joining live is you get to ask me all kinds of questions while I'm live, and I will do my best to answer them. But if you're on the replay as well, it's still valuable too, right? Okay, so let's dive in. What are we talking about today? Well, we're talking about all things cortisol. So this one has been a hot topic, not only when I'm talking to women, but also just in terms of when you're scrolling through social media. I don't know if your algorithm is aligning with my algorithm, but is cortisol to blame? And so let's look at what's actually happening. Today, hi Sharon. Today we're just going to look at, what's the what behind it all. And then part two is going to dive a little bit deeper into like, okay, what do we do with this now, right? So, yeah, I think a lot of us maybe in perimenopause or menopause are thinking or have thoughts around like, is this just hormones now? Like, am I kind of stuck with these hormones? Is this why I feel the way I feel, or why things aren't happening the way they used to be or the way I want them to? Or am I doing something wrong, right? You're stuck between kind of two things. One side that says it's menopause, my body has changed, this is just how it is now. Maybe that's part surrendering to that. Maybe that's part of like, I don't know what to do with it now. And the other side that says, try harder, be more maybe disciplined, track better, move more on that side of things. So maybe you're stuck between two extremes. It's like, I don't know what to do, or there's nothing I can do. It's my hormones. But then on the other side of things, it's like I want to do everything possible to try and feel better and look better. Neither of those things actually explain like what's happening, right? And neither one helps you kind of move forward. It's like, well, what is it that you do, right? And we also don't understand or see how mentally and emotionally exhausting it is to kind of sit and toggle between both sides. I'm in it, I'm not in it. I'm on the bandwagon, I'm off the bandwagon. So today we're going to look at closing that gap. So this training is not about blaming cortisol or hormones and throwing your hands up. We're actually looking at load, and we're going to understand what that actually means and how your body responds to that load differently now than it used to, and what is within your control to make things happen, for it to kind of feel different, for you to feel different, right? So here's the shift most women don't realize that's happened. Your body didn't just suddenly break. Your metabolism didn't suddenly just go rogue and stop. Your hormones did not suddenly start to like go haywire and betray you. I know it feels like that. You're starting to notice the shift and feel the shift, and you're like, there's definitely something going on. But what changes is actually the buffering capacity. So, what do I mean by that? Well, we have a hormone called estrogen. And estrogen used to be like the thing that buffered your stress. It was the go between. It helped to soften the impact of like maybe poor sleep. So it's the reason why in your 20s you could bar hop, go to bed late, get up the next morning and do your 6 a.m. shift. But you can't, you're like, I can't even fathom doing that at 40 plus, 50 plus, or 60 plus. So you don't have the same level of estrogen you did to be able to buffer that poor night's sleep. Or recovering from a harder training. So used to do more intervals, more hit trainings, more high intensity, right? But now it's like you don't have that same buffering capacity to help you recover from that. Or maybe for some women, it's even to push hard enough in those workouts, or push hard enough for as many days as you used to, or for as long as you used to, right? And then we got inconsistent eating as well that happens. And so then that lowers our buffering capacity too. Inconsistent eating is, yeah, I, the way I explain that is like a lot of women aren't hungry in the morning, and so they start their eating later on in the day, and then it's like, if they're busy they forget to eat. I don't know how that happens. I can never imagine being the person who forgets to eat, but they forget to eat and then they eat later. Or it's like some days they're eating later, some days they're eating earlier, some days, and then they're backloading their food. Or it's like, some days they're eating very little, then some meals they're eating a lot. So that inconsistent eating pattern does play a role in our estrogen and our ability to buffer our buffering capacity. Then we have a greater emotional load as well. So it could just be like the demands of life. Like it could just be like, hey, more stressful. Like I know for me, it's like my aging parents as well, and seeing their decline, and then having to shuffle them to and from appointments. So that adds emotional load, seeing all that. Then you have like friends who are in the age where you're starting to see some emotion, some health setbacks in that age as well. You think about the day and age of social media and everything that's going on in the world. We're being hit with micro traumas so much more often, just because of social media, all that things. And then you think about longer days and then shorter recovery cycles as well. So what changes is the buffering capacity, because estrogen used to be able to buffer that and now it can't. So it can't soften the impact in all of these things. So as estrogen and progesterone fluctuates and declines, that buffer basically just gets thinner and thinner. That means the same life you were handling before now costs your body more, simply because the margin is just smaller. One second. Real live training here. Okay, so we need to talk about cortisol, but we're going to do it properly, because cortisol is not bad. You actually need it. Our cortisol is higher in the morning, right? And so that's what helps us get out of our bed. That's what helps us get more energy and get us going. It's normal for it to be a little bit more elevated in the morning as well. And cortisol also, when cortisol is high, it can motivate us to do things. So it's not to say that cortisol is all bad. We have good stress and we have bad stress. Cortisol helps you do basically 4 things in your body. So let's go through them. The first thing is it helps you with blood sugar. Cortisol makes sure that you have fuel available when you need it. And when it's balanced, you feel kind of steady between meals. When it's high all the time, your blood sugar goes up and down more aggressively. That's when you get energy crashes, cravings, and that I need to do something now feeling. So cortisol helps you, one, with your blood sugar regulations, right? It makes sure that there's some available for when you need it. You need to be more balanced in your meals so that it's steadier in between. And when it's high all the time, that's when your blood sugar goes up and down. So that is associated with more crashes, more cravings, and the just like, those feelings that just don't feel very good, right? Then it's also a part of the energy availability. So I know, what does that mean, right? So cortisol helps release stored energy so you can function. So it's short bursts. That's useful. When it's constant, your body stays in that emergency mode. So think about it like, I just got in a car accident and it's like I got that adrenaline rush, or it's like I just witnessed something traumatic that gives me that adrenaline rush, or it's like I now have to run from the bear, that gives me the energy that I need to be able to do that, or I'm running from the cops then it gives me the energy to do that, right? So but when it's elevated for too long, that system gets pretty sloppy. So inflammation, then what happens is sticks around a lot longer instead of clearing, because it's elevated for too long. So that shows up as, it could show up as bloating. It could show up as body aches, especially like around your joints or back pain. It could show up as puffiness and feeling inflamed, even though you're eating pretty well. So that's the role that it plays with inflammation. Then we have to look at it just from a stress response, right? So cortisol, again, like think about it as part of that alarm system. It helps you respond to stress and then shut the alarm off. The problem, again, is when it always stays elevated, like it never turns off. Your body kind of stays on edge. Recovery suffers. Sleep gets lighter, and fat loss drops to the priority list, down on the priority. It's not to say that fat loss and stress can't happen at the same rate. It's just like now the body just has a different priority. Your mind is, I need fat loss, I need weight loss, I need to drop weight. But your body is saying, wait a minute, the alarms are still going off. We need to like quiet or silence the alarms first before we can get to what's on your list. So the problem is not cortisol existing. The problem is it's never standing down. It's never coming back down. And I think when I talk to a lot of women, when I ask, rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, where is your stress levels? A lot of women have a really hard time rating their stress levels, because they're like, well, I don't have anything significant going on in my life. There's no traumatic event. There's no big thing. And then some women will go, well, my job is stressful, my home life is stressful, but that's how it always is. So therefore, I don't really have a true value or understanding of my cortisol levels. They think about it as physical things, but very much disregard the emotional and mental impact of things having on you as well. And I think women are very good at pushing through. I just need to get through. I just need to get through. I just need to get through. With that, the downside of that is that then you get into a place where you're not really knowing if you're in stress, or you're not present a lot, and you're not really understanding what your stress levels are at. before hormones came, not to say that we never had we always had hormones, but before perimenopause and menopause, we had a wider stress window. We could tolerate things a lot better and rebound from those things, partially for the reasons I just described, is like we had more estrogen to buffer that. But now that you're in perimenopause and menopause, that window's become smaller and smaller. So it's why you get irritated more often, or it's why you blow the gasket more often, or it's why you're at your wit's end more often, or it's why you have that wired but tired feeling, or it's why you're like, I just can't get motivated, I just can't go going. Sure, there are other reasons as that, but part of that is just the stress load and not really understanding, am I under stress? What are the signs and symptoms that my body are sending me? And oftentimes, the body will send you lots of signs and symptoms, but we discredit that as something else. My digestion goes off, and I think, oh, it's just because I ate pizza, or I didn't sleep really well. Oh, it's because the dog woke me up. But then in combination, when we reflect back, we can see those were all signs and symptoms that came in, sounding the alarm to say, hey, your stress was higher. Even just like frequent, like sinus, like frequent colds or flus and things like that, because it does lower your immunity as well. So cortisol doesn't cause weight gain on its own. Cortisol changes how your body behaves, and then in turn how you behave. So just think about it. Well, if cortisol impacts my cravings, then what do? I then give in to my cravings more often, whether that's something decadent, whether that's something savory, salty, or sweet, or whether that's wine, for example. Is like, so that's how it kind of works. Or it's like, if cortisol affects my appetite, meaning it either makes me super hungry for some people, then no wonder we overeat, or no wonder like our portions are bigger. But for other people, it down regulates appetite and digestion. Now you can't go to the bathroom, and now you're not eating as well, but then it backfires on the back end when you're feeling like more snacky and things like that, things that are more calorie dense. So cortisol just changes how your body behaves and then how you respond. So some of those things again are like appetite signals, your blood sugar regulation, your digestion speed. For some, it's like overactive. So for me, when I'm super stressed, it's very loose bowels, very frequent. When my husband is stressed, it's like he can't go for days. Your recovery from, from one bad sleep, or recovery from one workout, and then your sleep depth and quality as well. So weight gain and weight loss restrictions happen downstream of all of those changes. Does that make sense? So most women here stress and think, again, they think work, kids, life, but your body counts stress very differently. So again, let's break that down like at a different level so we understand. Of course, if you have any questions and you're live, just pop them into the chat there. So we have the emotional and mental load, like I already alluded to. You're always managing, you're always planning, you're always the person that's kind of holding it together. Your body experiences this as constant vigilance, always having to be ahead of the present moment to make sure everything is perfect or in place or managed correctly, right? Nothing falls through the cracks. Then you got nervous system overload. You may sit down, but your nervous system fully never comes out of that go mode. And an example of that is for a lot of women with snacking at nighttime, it's like it's a multitasking thing. So it's like I can't just watch TV and not do anything else. I have to be scrolling on my phone, eating, or knitting, for example. And so that's just like a sign of the system never fully coming out of that go mode. That's why rest doesn't necessarily feel restorative. Or you have some women who are like, I try and get downtime, but my mind thinks about the million and one things that I can be doing or should be doing. And I also feel guilty about it because there are all of these things that I need to be doing. Then there's sleep disruption, not just how long you sleep, but how deep you sleep. So sure, there's a lot that say you need to get 7 to 8, but for some people in terms of their lifestyle, that's not realistic for you. So then we focus on, at least with my coaching clients, we focus on the depth of their sleep as well. So waking up between 2 and 4 a.m. Is a sign, hey, that, if it's not blood sugar, it's a sign that your cortisol levels, because you just don't have that estrogen to buffer it, right? So it could be a sign that your estrogen is dropping, cortisol is getting higher, feeling that tired but wired feeling as well. It's like maybe your body is really tired but your mind is really wired, and needing caffeine to kind of function as well. So, which also then is counterintuitive to getting into deep sleep, right? Then we have digestion and inflammation. So, stress for some people, it slows down the digestion, but it could also mean that you have more bloating, more like bloating, but it's like hardness through your stomach. But for some people, it's really uncomfortable through their stomach, in particular if they go to wear something tight. You have irregular bowel movements. For some, like I said, it's that loose stool. For others, it's that really hard stool. For some, it's like it goes right through them. It's very loose. And for other women, other people, it's like 3, 4, 5 days. And just think about the buildup of hormones that are happening when you're not clearing it out. And then you just have more general inflammation. So what do I mean? It could be like your ring is really hard to get on. You have a lot of sock lines around your ankles as well. Maybe you just feel like when you get up in the morning, your face is really puffy too. And then it also affects your capacity and decision fatigue. So like food decisions, you I guess like if you're depleted, right? If you're just like you make so many micro decisions throughout the day, the last thing that a lot of women want to think about is what's for dinner, what do I need to eat, how much protein is this, that sort of thing. So you start making food decisions when you're depleted, and when you're depleted, we don't necessarily make the best food decisions for ourselves. And it's not because we don't know better, it's because your brain is just really tired, right? And then training's, your recovery starts to get impacted. So why? Well, exercise, although it's really good for you, it's perceived as a stressor on your body. So it's a helpful one when it's paired with proper recovery. It's a problem when it's layered on top of everything else. So it's like I have all of this life stress, emotional stress, mental load, all of these things that I've been talking about, and now here I am doing a lot of exercise with no recovery, or really intense workouts with no recovery, and recovery being rest breaks within, downtime at the end of the day after your session, or just like a structured rest day off, right? So this is why just do more cardio backfires for women. Not always, but often. A lot of women maybe watching this could benefit from doing more workouts or more cardio or exercise because they're doing nothing. They're not doing anything to kind of challenge their body or bring their body out of the comfort zone, or to even release some of that trapped energy within their body. But there are other women that are certainly on the other spectrum. They don't have an issue with their workouts. What they have an issue with is taking a day off or doing that kind of rest in recovery mode as well. So this is kind of the part that matters the most. So stress doesn't stall fat loss by any magic. It just stalls fat loss by shaping some of those added patterns. So again, what are those patterns? So, you undereat earlier in the day, and generally when I coach women, if you're undereating during the day, you're making it up either the day after, or you're making it up later on at night. And it could be not just with a lot of food, it could just be with really calorie dense low foods. So again, it could lead to overeating at night as well. Training hard on low fuel, so that all starts to impact your recovery, your energy throughout the day. But not only that, is like if you train really hard under fueled, you think, oh, because I did that for 45 minutes or an hour, I got everything out. Then you have no fuel and you exerted all that energy, then you tend to be, I don't want to say lazier, but you tend to be less mobile throughout the day. It's like you sit more, you're not really motivated to work at your standing desk or stand up during your breaks and take a little walk to the water cooler or whatever. You start doing a little bit less of that, and sometimes that is unknowingly that you're doing it. It's like as subconsciously. You skip meals then to be good, because it's like, okay, I feel inflamed, my digestion is off, I want to lose this weight, so you start doing that. And then sleeping poorly and expecting progress. If your plan doesn't include sleep, and I'm not talking about 7 to 8 hours of sleep, I'm talking about good quality sleep, then we wonder why progress isn't happening as well, or why cravings are higher, or why hunger is sporadic and that sort of thing, and then never fully recovering. So your body isn't really fighting you, it's adapting to what it thinks is a stressful environment. It would be the same thing. Like if you just think about the scenario of there is a bear and the bear is coming charging at you, you need to adapt what it is that you're doing so that the bear doesn't come and attack you, right? And so what are you doing? You're starting to think about, screaming out loud, or yelling for help, or running as far as you can, or looking for a place to hide or climb. I don't know what that is, but you start to figure out what it is that you need to do to get yourself out of that stressful environment. What we can see that clearly. Like that visual is like, yeah, I would do everything I could so that the the bear didn't maul me, but we don't think about internally your body is also doing that as well. So it's not really fighting you, it's adapting to what it thinks is the stressful environment, is the bear. So an adaptation will always favor survival over fat loss. When you're running from the bear, you're not thinking about this cardio is really good for me to lose my belly fat. You're not thinking about any of that. You're thinking about survival, and your body is doing the same thing too. Does that analogy make sense? Make it clear? Because I'm hoping that it does on an outside. Yeah, that's exactly what would happen. And yeah, I wouldn't think about fat loss if I'm running away from the bear, but we miss how we're doing that within our body. Our body is doing that on a level that, we can't even see or maybe fully understand, right? So nothing here means that you did this wrong, you failed, you're doomed. It just means your body is responding exactly as it's designed, given the inputs it's getting. Does that make sense? So it's like you're in charge of the inputs. And if we're not consistent with the inputs or putting in the right inputs, so if I'm, we're wanting 1 + 1 to equal 2, but it can only equal 2 if we are consistently giving it the right inputs. So in our control, because sometimes we can't control, or at least not in the meantime, it feels too big to move the needle mover with a crappy relationship with your husband, or unsupportive relationship, or connect with your husband. It's not something you can do with your teenaged kids. They just are moody, they're just needy, you just have to shuffle them all over. Your job for the meantime, it's like you need the paycheck, you need the work, and so you have to work the extra long hours or deal with crappy people or that sort of thing. So we can't always immediately change our environment to then change our stress load in that sense, but we can stop putting, I guess, fuel on the fire, in the sense that we can start controlling some of these other inputs that we've just discussed today, so that it's not stress and then we're doing, crappy sleep, inconsistent eating, and all of those other things on top, so that the stress pile gets higher and higher. We can start to remove some of that one, so that we're dealing with the baseline of stress until our environment or circumstances are able to change, or our outlook on it is able to change. So this week, I don't want you to fix anything. What I want you to do is move into notice, awareness, and notice, or notice and name is one of the skills that a lot of my coaching clients are familiar with and work with. And I'm going to give you 3 things. And so if you don't have your paper and your pen, this might be a great opportunity for you to get it out. But I want you to focus on 3 things this week, or notice these 3 things. So the first one is a capacity check. So once a day, I want you to ask yourself, am I in a season where my body, mind, and emotions can handle more, or I'm in a season where the minimums are the work? And why this question is important is because oftentimes we get stuck in this is the dial, and the dial never adjusts. No matter if someone dies, no matter if work is crazy, no matter if I just got in a fight with my spouse, no matter if work was crazy, it doesn't matter, the dial doesn't adjust. This question is about asking you to adjust the dial. It's asking you to do a body scan, a mind scan, and an emotion scan, and to see where your season is at. Because if you're I'm doing the things that support my body and my stress level to the maximum capacity I can do in this season that I'm in, then that's your 100%. When your season changes, then you can do differently or more, because your season is now different, your capacity is a bit greater. So that's the first question is I want you to ask. So if you didn't write it down, write it down. Am I in a season where my body, mind, and emotions can handle more, or am I in a season where the minimums are the work? And if you're in a season where the minimums are the work, then it's list out what are the minimums, and then start being really consistent with those minimums. Start reducing some of that stress load off, right? When it comes to food decisions, let's do a little check. So every time you eat side of a planned meal, ask yourself, am I eating because my body needs fuel? Or is it because maybe I'm stressed, procrastinating, tired, underslept, or emotionally tapped? And it's not to say that we can't eat for emotional reasons. That's not what we're saying. It's just becoming aware of what is driving our eating patterns. So if you're constantly eating because you're emotional, because you're procrastinating, because you're lonely, because, it's a reward, whatever that looks like, then you start to get curious about that. But if you never look at that, you just look at it as cravings, lack of willpower, then you're never getting to the root of why it's happening. So am I eating because my body needs fuel, or am I eating for some other reason What is that other reason? Is that other reason habit? Is that other reason emotional? Is that other reason a craving, for example? So we're just collecting the data. So then, let's say you did this for a week or 2 weeks, or even if you wanted to do it for a month, you can look back and be like, holy crap, I gave in to my cravings, 70% of the time, or I eat, 50% of the time for emotional reasons, not because I'm even hungry. That's great data for the unit to uncover, okay, what's really behind that and what it is that you need to be doing next. Then a rest check. When you try to rest, ask yourself, can I actually rest without feeling guilty? Or do I feel wired, maybe restless, or like I should be doing something else? And it goes back to what we just talked about in this training, is like, really, can I rest? Am I folding laundry and watching TV? Is that my rest time? Is that what I deserve in this season of life? Is that what my value, my worth is? Or can I just sit there and just watch TV? If I'm connecting with my partner at the end of the night, do I need the glass of wine or the snacks? Or can I just sit in their presence and their connection without all of that? And I'm not saying give up all of that. I'm just saying notice it, because this week is just about noticing the rest check. So when you try and rest, ask yourself, can I actually rest without guilt? Or do I feel wired, restless, or like I should be doing something, right? So this is kind of the 3 questions that I want to leave you with today's training to explore. And it's this week is just about like awareness, right? And we're going to do more on this topic. Again, this one's just about awareness. So in the next training, we're going to talk about, what to change first, how to lower your stress load without blowing up your life, and how to work with your nervous system instead of against it. Because doing everything is not the answer. Doing the right few things, and I want to specify few things, is. So if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, this makes sense, but I don't know how to actually apply this consistently, again, that's normal. This training is just meant to create some clarity. It's not meant to kind of replace support or individualized support for you. If at some point you want to help kind of personalizing this, putting all of the pieces together, sorting out what matters most for your body, staying accountable, you can always kind of reach out and ask questions. No pressure. I just want you to kind of know that this support exists. So if you're here, this is the last call for questions as well. I hope that helps you understand, what is actually happening in your body when it comes to stress, and how it might look or manifest in ways that maybe you are dismissing as something else, or maybe you're just, not looking at the root cause of those as well. And if you have, I just always love to know if you're here. So obviously just drop in, say, hey, I'm here live, or I'm catching the replay too. But also, tell me, are you going to commit to these 3 questions the next week, 2 weeks, month, or so? I really want to know if you're going to commit to those questions. Let me know if you're on board. Okay, I'm Coach Cindy signing off.